Hello, hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Hey. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited to come to you guys tonight, and we are joined with our amazing therapists tonight who are going to share with us some ways in which we can really heal ourselves and heal some of the history and things that have happened in our family line. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce each lady and then get it started. So, Trinity has been with us for some time. Excited. Trinity, please introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Trinity Freeman. I am one of the therapists at Vision Work Counseling and Coaching. So excited to be a part of this team. I've been around since I think August. I think we started working together.
That's some time for us.
I know, exactly. Right? It feels like that was last year. So I'm really excited to be on with the team. I am an associate marriage and family therapist. Love working with adolescents, young women, and just helping everybody get to where they want to be. So I'm really happy to be here and to be able to be a part of this conversation. I'm super excited.
Yay! And then we have Shatevia who just joined us. So
Yes,
who is
yes.
new for us?
Hi, everyone. I'm Shatevia. And like Melissa said, I just joined the team back in January. I primarily work with kids and adolescents who are struggling with ADHD, past traumas, depression, anxiety, and just helping them get on the right track, get focused so they can be the best selves in their lives.
Absolutely. I am so excited that you're here. And Shatevia, I'm still working on that. Like, making sure I say it right, guys. So y'all
I
have to
think
help
you
me
said
out.
it right this time.
Did I? Okay, I said it
Mhm.
last time I said it right. I didn't say it right the first time. When you came back, I was like, yeah, I messed that up. So just like wanted to use this time just to talk about some of the dynamics. And it's interesting because both of you guys work with the young people that we serve. So it's interesting because during this time, it's 2022, we're seeing so much with like entertainers, with people or notable people, everybody's saying, hey, get support, get help. And I feel like our community, since the Me Too movement, Black Lives movement has really been saying we want to do life differently. We don't want to just hear about, let's pray about it. We really want to get through real healing, and we want to see the people who have hurt us like make amends and literally change our family dynamic. But that piece is like slow moving. So I really wanted to have a conversation around how do we help people who are working to get healthy, like our clients who are doing the work, putting the work in. How do we help them get healthy when they're still surrounded by toxic people within their family group? So I'm going to just put that out to you guys, just thinking about the clients that you serve. What's some ways in which we could stay grounded as we are still surrounded by people who are not willing to invest in themselves and to do the work yet?
Yeah, I can go first. Okay. I think when I think about that, and I think it's such an important point you made, Melissa, about like how we have clients who come to therapy, they're ready to work, they're ready to make changes. And then we also have to recognize that sometimes they go back into, after their hour session, they go back into an environment that is not reinforcing the work that they are doing in therapy. And I think for, both Shatevia and I who work with young kids and adolescents, that can be
That's the hard
incredibly
part.
difficult,
Mhm.
right? And even for adults, that is incredibly difficult. It's like, hey, I'm doing all this really good work, but now I'm going back into this system where my dysfunctional behavior before is encouraged versus the new behaviors that I'm trying to make. So I think a key to that too is just kind of recognizing what it is, like being open about these are the barriers that I'm going to come up against when I'm trying to change this behavior or change my lifestyle. Like just getting ahead of it. Like this is what I'm going to run into. These are some of the barriers. This is not going to be accepted here. So what are the strategies that I'm going to use to make sure that I can continue to maintain whatever behaviors that I want to change, and having someone to help keep you accountable to that, having someone to check in with that, whether it be your therapist or a friend who's, close to saying, hey, like I'm having this issue. Doing that, I think, is so important when you're trying to make these different changes, but the environment isn't also changing with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shatevia, do you have anything to add to that?
I think Trinity hit it right on the nail. I definitely agree with that. One thing that I try to work on with my clients is how they respond to what's going on around them. I truly believe a lot of our stress is caused not by what we may be dealing with in that moment, but how we react to that stress. And so, because I can't change what someone else may be, their behaviors, I can't change how they're going to process whatever's going on. I have to be responsible for myself. And Trinity, I do like that you mentioned calling out to a friend, because I always say, who are your social supports outside of your family? Who can you call when you need that extra support, or you feel like, hey, I'm being triggered right now and I may be going back into this old habit that I don't want to step back into. So yeah, definitely having those social supports and kind of coming up with strategies to manage how you react to those stressors in your home.
Absolutely. I know for me, like I'm the queen of letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's easy to be the queen of that when your clients are adults. Because I'm like, well, just let that relationship go. I remember a neighbor from like when I was growing up, Mama Tucka, that was her name. She would say certain people you treat with the long handle spoon. So for me, it would be like if these are primary people in your life, your sister, your brother, their cousin, or whoever who's toxic, you may not be able to let them go like I would do if they were a toxic friend, right?
Right.
But you may have to treat them with a long handle spoon. And a lot of our clients are not engaging in what I consider like consistent dysfunction. Going to the family meal, knowing that it's all this stuff that needs to be talked about. You know what I mean? Like you're sitting at the
Mm-hmm.
table with the person that molested your cousin. You're sitting at the table with the person that allowed that to happen, and it's never been addressed. These are like family secrets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as when you guys are working with young people, which made me think of young people, how do young people distance themselves from the dysfunction? You're in a household with someone who may have done something that they shouldn't have, someone who may have said something, because abuse comes in all layers. It might be financial abuse, emotional abuse, as well as physical abuse. And of course, this is mental havoc on a young person. What are some ways they can like emotionally stay grounded when they can't physically leave a situation?
That's a very good question. Because like you said, with adults, I can say, hey, it's okay to set boundaries. If you know that someone's going to be at that family dinner that you particularly don't need to see at this moment, it's okay to say, I'm not going to make this, this dinner. But with kids, you don't really have a choice. If mom says, hey, let's go, you have to go. So what I do try to do with some of my younger kids is help them first by identifying those triggers. What's setting you off? Um, is there a way that you can avoid this person while you're at this dinner? Can you be in another room if they're going to be in the living room? Where do most of the kids normally go? If you're afraid to be around this person, travel in the buddy system. So just giving them those type of tips to make sure that, hey, if you feel yourself losing control, someone needs to be there. Is there somebody, an adult at the dinner that you can talk to if you need it? You know?
I love that. Like, is there another family member? Is there somebody else
Mm-hmm.
that's healthy? I had a chance to talk to a niece the other day, and she was like, I'm so glad that you reached out to me, Auntie, because it was things that she wanted to talk about. Is there somebody else who's doing the work that's healthy that you could talk to? Because sometimes, like, our parents in those situations or people who are so steeped in the situation, they're so busy with the day to day, they're not able to see what they need to do to get out of it. And sometimes having another adult come to them and say, hey, look, this is not good. this really is affecting your child, your family household in a way that you didn't think about, is really good. We don't so much have so many clients that deal with sexual abuse, but we do have a lot of clients who are managing and getting through divorce. That's like big in our practice, having young people who are managing divorce or ADHD. How do those traumas like affect the household?
Ooh, I think that's a big question. I think,
Yeah.
particularly speaking into divorce, I think that affects so many aspects of a household. It affects the individuals who are going through the divorce. It affects the kids. It can affect the outside family. It can affect so many different things. It's also, if you have certain groups of friends and communities, like who gets to keep the friends, who gets to keep the church, who gets to keep, these things that we go to. And so I think it can affect in so many different ways. And because of that, I think it's really important to, if you're in therapy or to get in therapy, to have that extra support or have, a friend that you can go to. Like having support during that time is so important because there's a lot of different things, like your life is taking a complete shift. A life that you've created, that you've known what it looks like for a long time, it's making a shift. And even if the, marriage that you were in wasn't one that you were happy to be in, nonetheless, it's still a shift. It's still a big change. So being able to have some extra support around you, I think, is so important. And I think every family has kind of different rules regarding relationship, divorce, and things of that sort. Some families, it's, we're here, we're behind you, we support you, we're with you. And then in some families, it's much more just, this is not what we do, or it's not that way. And so that can also be added onto it as kind of a part of the trauma of just feeling the loss, feeling shame or guilt, depending on those different things. So I think having that support of, a therapist, a friend, a church, some sort of community to really kind of help you through that and to be able to validate your experience, I think is a really, really important thing.
Absolutely. Shatevia, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I want to touch on the ADHD. A lot of times in families, you'll hear, "Oh, they just don't spank him enough," or "He's spoiled," and it really depends on how you were brought up, how you were informed about mental health. Like a lot of kids go without the necessary help because we look at it as a behavior issue rather than, okay, they're having issues focusing, or they're having a hard time staying on task. The working memory may not be functioning right. That executive functioning, it's important. And if they're having a hard time adjusting to that, it's not just behavior issues, it's more than that. And it can affect the family dynamic. If you have a mom who is a single parent, works all the time, she comes home, her child is bouncing off the wall, she doesn't really know what's going on, and all anybody's telling her is, okay, you got to discipline them, you got to spank them more, and that's not the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you talked about that because my middle daughter has ADHD, and for years, and this is me as a therapist, so I definitely, like, if you're watching, you have a family or friend who has this issue, and you just kind of want to share some new information. So for many years we treated it with behavioral therapy, and she had a therapist that would help her with the behavioral piece when she was younger and with the learning piece, because a lot of times ADHD, it is a cognitive disorder. A lot of times people don't understand that it's a brain disorder, and so sometimes the chemical imbalances are there. So we had someone that helped with those things, and so at one point, a student present in her class, but she now started having managed other things such as anxiety and depression. And I did not, as a parent, understand that because I hadn't dealt with any of that during the younger years. During the younger years, it was impulsive, behavior, and trying to make sure she didn't say what she shouldn't be saying, and then also her making friends, because a lot of times kids with ADHD don't make friends easily because they're speed ahead of other kids. They speak out of turn. They don't know how to follow group rules. So when she started having healthy relationships, I'm like, look, we solved this. She's an A student. She have healthy relationships. But when she started testing in high school and sharing how hard it was for her to test, I'm like, we just need to study more. Because she started mentioning, like, I need Adderall. I'm like, you don't need anything. We're going to just test more. We're going to get you some more. And true enough, there was things that weren't clicking brain-wise. So when she would get in those situations, she was freezing. And so I share that because we can easily dismiss our kids when we think that we know them, and we're all changing. We're not the same yesterday as we are today. And so biologically, other things were shifting in her brain where, yeah, she had some things down, but other things needed to be addressed. And this year, last year, she addressed those things and is doing so well. Doing so well in college, doing so well in school, and the medication was a dream for her. And I was comparing it to so many kids that I thought had started way too young. And again, this was my field. This is a therapist who had worked with kids for forever. And so I felt like I knew all the answers, but here it is. Here's a situation where it really could have benefited her for a long period of time. And thank God she was able to speak up for herself and say, no, I need to get some support around this. And I could see the behaviors with the depression, like, no, we need to get her some support. And I said, whatever you need, let's do it. And it's just been a godsend. So I say that to you, like, it's okay to shift our thought processes, especially here in the Black community, because we are so accustomed to feeling like people are throwing stuff on us or trying to make our kids sick, and it's like, nothing wrong with you. No, sometimes it is. Like, there is something wrong. Yeah. And we need to address it, right? And so that people can, like, function better and be happier. And she's just so much happier.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad I didn't stop with just like, okay, well, we did this part, but I just continued. And so for some of us, we just need to really listen, like really deep dive and listen.
Yeah, Melissa, I think that's such a great example because it also speaks to how it can look look differently over time. Like we think of like ADHD or depression or anxiety, like they all look the same and everybody, like, were we able to spot it out of a lineup, but age, gender, socioeconomic status, all those things influence how it shows up in a person. And, for your daughter, it changed over time. Like it looked one way when she was younger and it looks a different way as she gets older. I think that's such an important point, that it can all be under the same diagnosis, but it shows up so differently based upon kind of where you are in life and what's going on. And I think sometimes, even like you said, even as therapists, we lose sight, like, okay, this kid seems like they're really angry, but they're actually really depressed. Like, we think it's like, oh, he just has an anger problem. No, he's actually really sad and it's coming through his anger.
Yeah.
I think that's such a really good point.
Yeah. And I think, like, so when I said that, it made me think of like us as a people evolving, right? How do we take this information and get okay with, healing ourselves, And so I'm saying it as like a public question. But I think it's more like, I don't know, like this year, last year, because we're already 2022, 2020 and 2021, I saw so many older people, like 50, 60, who had never been to therapy before, but now wanted to come in. And even now, like I just referred some people out to another clinician because a lot of the older folks will be like, hey, I want to, speak to someone who's older, which it makes a lot of sense. And, if I know somebody, I'll refer them out. But now they're like, hey, I want to get some support. But what has been at play for a long time has been secrecy. So when I'm talking to an older person, it takes a lot sometimes to crack open feelings and emotions. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, feelings and emotions, because they were taught not to express their feelings and emotions, which I think a lot of times they get scared by younger people because we are so expressive. It's like, look, why are you telling all our business? Why are you out here in these streets talking about what happened?
Yeah.
Because we have family rules around secrecy.
Yeah.
So how's that showing up for you guys with the dynamics of generations, like multi-generational therapy and families?
Yeah. at least I think personally, and this is even in my own personal life and in my own family, I have to continue to remind myself that everything makes sense in context. Like when my parents or my grandparents or my clients' parents or grandparents, when they were growing up, there were certain societal, cultural rules that they were following. And that's what they know. And then now we're coming into a new space of we share, we're open, we need to express our feelings. It's okay to get help. Even though, like, for us, it's like, oh, finally free, we can share it all we want. For them, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is kind of scary. And so I think it's helped me to have some more patience and compassion for, you know, just the older generation in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think, as well, just in terms of emotions and feelings, also just change in general. I think as a younger people and younger generation, we adapt to change a little bit better and a little bit easier. But the older generation, they're holding on to what they know and what they know is true. And when those things change, they experience a lot of feelings that they may have never put labels to, that they may not understand. And so I think it helps when we think about it in that way and think of the context at which they grew up in and they were in, can help us to have some grace, have some patience, and be willing to kind of work with them to get to a space of, okay, I know that at one point in your life, sharing this was the biggest no-no. Like we would have kept this as a secret, but now let me tell you all the benefits. Let me explain to you why, like we can set you free some of these things if we can kind of talk through it. So it just helps me keep perspective of, the patience and the grace that I need to have when working with older people, because it's just not what they're used to.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much. I'm seeing it over in the chat. You guys are sharing your different experiences. I love it. Love it. Keep it coming. We are at the practice of VisionWorks Counseling Coaching. So that's www.visionworkscoaching.com. If you need some support, make sure you reach out to Jasmine, who's our office coordinator. I'm sitting in her office tonight. Yes. Our office coordinator. She definitely could get you scheduled with one of our amazing therapists, one of the ones we're talking to now, or one of the other ones that's on our team, because we want to make sure that we're using this time to not only say, hey, we have the Healing Circle, but we want you to know that we are here to support you and to help you through this time. So I want to go back to what you were saying, Trinity, because it was so valuable. I know for sure a lot of the reasons why older folks did not share all the things that they were going through is it wasn't safe. There was no one safe to share it to. Who are you going to tell that your daddy touched you or what have you? People were going to say, you did that. I mean, I literally come from a family where I've witnessed all of this, from my grandmother to my mom, to me growing up in a household with someone who wasn't safe and deciding that that was not going to be the outcome for my family. Like if I saw something that was not right, I was not going to allow that to exist, and deciding to break that generational curse. That's literally what I consider that to be, is a curse. And to get in a space of healthy, right? But it's safe for me to do so, right?
Yeah.
And even when it wasn't safe when I was young, I got called a lot of names because I just be like, that ain't right. No, you can't. Literally, I was a big mouth kid. Like nobody heard the best of me. If it happened once, it never happened again because I'm gonna tell it, right? I was the one that was gonna tell it. I was like, there's no secrets that's safe with Melissa. But, literally that's bravery, right? And so for so many people, they've held silent on stuff. I mentioned that and I wrote this down. So they weren't safe, and in them not being safe, emotionally, a lot of the attunement is off. So when we are talking to our young people about talking to different folks in their family, they're just not emotionally aware or intact. And don't even know how to respond. Can you guys share a little bit like what that looks like when you share something deep with somebody and they're just like, okay, so what are we having for coffee? Like what restaurant are we going to? And you're like, okay, but I'm going through, okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess like Personally, if I run into that type of situation, I typically don't share with that person anymore. I just check them off as like, okay, you're not the type of person that I can come and talk to. And so when I talk to my younger clients, I try to let them know that, hey, everybody's not going to be as open and available for you to talk, about what you are going through. They're not going to be comfortable. Some people are uncomfortable with having those type of conversations, and that's why you get that type of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to just encourage them not to let it invalidate how they're feeling. Um, is there someone else you can talk to? Kind of maybe table it for that moment. Or if you need to walk away, if you can, take a moment, get yourself together, and come back, and you can pick up that conversation with someone else at a later time. But don't let it discourage you from being open and sharing your story if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love that. So that's number one. If nothing else that you take from tonight, when you are talking to somebody that's healthy, they will validate your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
They will, even if they don't understand it and have never experienced it themselves, they will validate your feelings. They will say, "Oh my God, I'm sorry that happened to you. That must have been tough," right? A person who is not emotionally intact will literally skip over what you just said and go to the
Mm-hmm.
next thing because they themselves have so many things probably that they've never dealt with and probably have stuffed down.
Yeah.
And so it may not be that they're a bad person or a mean person, but they have their own work to do. And that's not going to be a safe space for you to share. And again, it's nothing wrong with you. And that's big because I know for me, when I was going through certain things and I shared with certain people, I really thought I would have people there for me. And I realized I had literally a lot of people in my space who weren't safe, and I had to recreate what my friendships look like. And so sometimes when we're going through these things, we have to now recognize we have to seek out healthy relationships. Like we have to find out what a healthy relationship is, and then
Yeah.
we have to start over. Here's an adult who had to start over from scratch on what healthy relationships look like and what real support and love looks like.
Yeah. And Melissa, I always also wanted to add, kind of piggybacking on Shatevia and what she was mentioning. I think as a family therapist, maybe I'm just biased, but I also think this is why family therapy is so important,
Mm-hmm.
because even though if you have a child, like I think it is fair for a child to say, I want to be able to talk to my mom about these things, or I want to be able to talk to my dad or my grandparent or whoever is their caregiver about these things. And I think family therapy is a really cool dynamic because some of those things can be taught, right? Like if
Mhm.
you see it in the room, like, okay, kid shares something that's important to them, parent brushes it off or doesn't validate. As a therapist, you can say, okay, hold on, like, let's not go past this, and kind of coach the parent through how to validate, how to, be emotionally attuned with their child. So I think also too, that is in addition to finding those safe people that you can talk to, I think just a plug for family therapy can
Mm-hmm.
be so valuable in that way, because as a therapist, we can help teach some of that. We can help the parent reconnect with their child as well.
Absolutely. So Darren wanted to know, like, what are the options that they have? I would always tell when I worked with young people in school, go to your school counselor, talk to your teacher.
Uh-huh.
Those are going to be safe places and safe outlets for you to share your concerns. My now 20-year-old was best friends with the school counselor in third and fourth grade, right? Because again, she would be doing all sorts of things, and I'm sharing this, but Yemi, and that's her name, is very open about her journey and talks about this on her Instagram page, her Facebook page. So it's not anything new. We are very like open with therapy. Like I've been a therapist for over 20 something years. So all of my kids have been through therapy. I can luckily and happily say that. A lot of it has just been like just having a person to talk to. Um, I come from that dynamic of I can't do this alone, and sometimes talking to someone else besides
Mm-hmm.
is a better space where you feel more comfortable. And so Yumi has always had relationships with like teachers at her high schools, um, uh, parents of her friends, things like that she could talk about different things to. And it really does take a community to help raise children. So I would encourage, when I worked with kids years ago, I worked with kids who had experienced sexual abuse and trauma. So the safe people that we helped them to connect with immediately when they were young was their teacher and their school counselor. And I would instruct my kids, don't stop until you know that you were hurt.
Mhm.
And so I still will say that that rings true. You have amazing counselors at schools today who literally doors are open and they're ready to like help whatever kid that they need to, whether they have groups there for girls and self-esteem and confidence and all of those different things. Your child may be a young adult, may be a part of a track team or cheerleading team or anything like that. They can talk to their coach. So there are always different people. It's just being open to connect with them. And I think as parents, like starting young and letting them know if you need to talk to somebody else, it's okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I think that starts to shroud and get rid of all of this secrecy stuff and starts to put us on this playing field where we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just like wrap up. Any closing thoughts?
I think one, I really enjoyed this conversation because I think it's such an important conversation. And I think just the narrative of like secrecy sticks out to me, that we've got to get these things out in the open, make the covert overt, like we've got to get it out here, because these things like generational curses cannot be addressed unless we can identify them and know what they are, right? Like our family members might not acknowledge, they might not recognize, but if we as individuals can say, this is not going to move forward, like I recognize this pattern in my family, and I am going to stop here in my future family and not move it forward. Like identifying those things really helps us to be able to say, okay, I can recognize when it's showing up. If I know what it is, I can recognize, how to, and come up with a plan as to how to make it different for your life. So that's the big thing that's kind of stuck out for me, is just really putting these things out there for yourself and recognizing those and working with someone to say, okay, how do I make things different for my life?
Absolutely. And Shatevia.
Yes. I definitely agree with Trinity. At some point we have to make the decision like, hey, this is gonna stop with me. Even with my son, I allow him to express himself as long as, he's not disrespectful to a certain extent. But he can tell me, Mommy, you made me mad today. I want you to be able to tell me what you're feeling. We don't keep secrets. I always tell them that. You tell me everything. We don't keep secrets. You tell Mommy, you tell Daddy, you tell somebody if something's going on. So just making sure that we're starting to break these generational curses. We're teaching our kids how to set healthy boundaries, even with family members, because I know that can be really hard sometimes. But we can start them young. We can teach them while they're young, so they're not having to go through the same things that we've had to go through.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we didn't touch on this, but I want to make sure we close with this. We are seeing an alarming rate of suicide. You know, the last couple of years, if you look at the stats, the rate has truly gone up, especially for young people. And to me, that is one, is truly alarming, but it just shows you how isolated people feel and how alone that they feel, even in their family systems, right? Even when we're looking at some of the stars recently and the kids, and I think it was Miss America, or I can't even remember what exactly her title. It has nothing to do with what people have. It has everything to do with feeling alone and feeling like you're not wanted, and also internal dialogues of people feeling like they can't express themselves. So definitely, if you have a family member that's going through different things, even when you don't understand, because I'm seeing this too, even in my own family dynamic, where we have folks young people who've identified as gay, who've identified as other than straight, and oftentimes they're confused, and their parents are like, No, that's not my kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in denial, and your kid is also struggling and alone in this, trying to figure out their sexuality. I just see so many different dynamics in which we place and pit our family members where they have to deal with stuff internally by themselves. And that is a really good space where suicide can happen,
Mm-hmm.
is when we do that. So if you don't know the answers, and we don't always know the answers, even when it conflicts with what your beliefs are, it's okay. Reaching out to someone else so that they can support your kid when you can't is so big. When you see that people are isolating themselves, they're not the same, they're not showing up the same, get some help. Don't look at it as this is just a phase, because again, I hear that all the time too. This is a phase they're going through, it'll be okay. It's not always a phase.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cry for help in a lot of different ways. It's a cry for help. And so let's get them the support that they truly need.
Yeah.
That's why people like us are here,
Mm-hmm.
and we're ready to do the work. Ready to do the
Absolutely.
work. All right, guys. Yes, right? Ready to do the work.
Yes.
And don't get mad when you hear them laughing in sessions now, because we have fun too. It's not all like, we have fun, and we allow them to process in a way in which they feel free and they feel connected, so that they want to show up differently. It's an amazing process to go through therapy
Yeah.
and to get coaching. It really is. All right, love you guys. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing with us and being present. Please share with a friend that may need it. Again, if you want to get in touch with us, I'll put our link in the comments. And have a good night. We'll see you guys next Monday with a new topic.
Bye.
All right, good night.